All right, so we are joined by Max Blumenthal. You all know him. Max Blumenthal is an award-winning journalist as well as the editor-in-chief and founder of the independent investigative news website, The Grayzone. He's also the best-selling author of several books, including Goliath, The 51-Day War, and The Management of Savagery. Max, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Good to see you.
Good to
Glad
see
to be
you.
back.
Yes. All right. So I sent you an email. So we're just going to cover the MCU today. So you saw the Marvels, right?
Are you screwing with Max?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah, no, my volume.
You know, they showed that to those sad-looking middle-aged men in that Ukrainian video.
Well, yeah, they showed
Marvels.
it right before
Yeah.
she started singing. I know. All right. So
What is the MCU?
That's the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay.
Yeah. Now that is a man dedicated to his work.
Don't pretend you don't know what it is.
Keep it. Yeah, he's pretending, man.
The most important CIA
I only know about.
psyops.
I only know about the MIC.
The MIC. That's right.
You didn't see-
He's dedicated.
Wait,
he's
There's
dedicated.
no heroes there.
That's who you want exposing the deep state.
Did you not see Black Panther where the guy from The Hobbit in The Office, a British one, played the kindly CIA agent who wants to help this advanced...
Right. Yeah,
With a little help from the
Max.
CIA.
Actually, I will say this because the MIC is so involved in rewriting the screenplays for these movies in order to give people the impression that the CIA is our friend, that you could expand your beat out to that just from that angle. But you and Aaron had some fun with the Washington Post this weekend. So the Washington Post was preparing to do a hit piece on the Grayzone, on you guys, and on the electronic intifada. Now it says quite a lot about the Washington Post that you would have a virulent Zionist even writing this story. So we have from there's the editor-in-chief of Electronic Intifada, Ali Abunama. When Washington's Post Elizabeth Dwoskin was at Columbia, she denied Nakba, claiming there was no Palestinian nation, and Palestine, with hundreds of villages and cities, was home to just a few, quote, desert Bedouins. That's who's assigned to write about Intifada. And here we see in the Columbia Spectator, it is one thing to come out against abuses. This was her academic writing at Columbia, and another to indict the state of Israel for an illegitimate existence. As the gift of the British, who only got the territory as a result of a colonial war, one can see Israel as existing on stolen land. But stolen from whom? Before the British swept in, there was no Palestinian nation. The territory was taken from the ailing Ottoman Empire and consisted of desert Bedouins without a sense of national identity as we know it today.
I guess if you cram them in that one space, they made to develop that.
Yeah, Max, you want to tell us briefly what's wrong with that analysis? Was it because there's a very common myth among Zionists, a land without a people for a people without a land.
Wait,
so that's completely untrue then?
Well, that's just the Zionist justification for the Nakba that even Theodore Herzl, the guru of Zionism, understood that the Palestinians were a real political entity and a cultural and social coherent entity, but and so too did Zev Jabotinsky, who's sort of the ideological godfather of Netanyahu. He wrote a whole paper called The Iron Wall, which basically argued that the Jewish colonists who had come to the land of Palestine wouldn't be able to form a nation without an iron wall of bayonets, which is basically acknowledging that there's a real people there and a real nation that is going to resist them if they try to dominate them. So this is like 2023 right now. I don't know when Elizabeth Dwoskin wrote that, but I assume it's in the modern or postmodern era when we understand that colonialism is wrong, and she's still trying to justify it in a college paper. I mean, this is just weird and anachronistic. And the Washington Post hires her as their social media reporter. I mean, this is the important background on her. They hire her as the social media reporter. So what does that mean in a newspaper like the Washington Post or the New York Times or Bloomberg? It means that she's basically a tool for the intelligence services and the censorship industrial complex. And her job is to punch down at dissenters and paint them all as, secret, as puppets of Russian meddling, or in this case, she's going after Palestinian disinformation is what she thinks she's doing, instead of going after the powerful apartheid state that she obviously has a great affinity for.
She's not going to go against her parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Max, do you have any problems with your relatives, or are they all on board? Are you
maybe like distant family, but they kind of know they're going to lose the argument, so they
stay.
I wasn't
that.
really like raised Zionist. I was raised, I went to Hebrew school and was raised around a lot of Jewish people, but my immediate family didn't really tell me you have to love Israel. I think they're all pretty uncomfortable. There was always like a level of discomfort about it because, I mean, why wouldn't you be if you're a decent person?
Well, let me ask you something, actually, because this is something I keep meaning to research. And as you know, the world is on fire and there's so much to keep up with. It's very hard to do any extracurricular research. My experience of Hebrew school is that it's Zionist training camp. And I talked to Katie Halper about this. She seemed to confirm that. Was that your experience? I mean, my experience was they teach you Hebrew and Zionism, and that's it.
No, I mean, it really wasn't. We got more of the Holocaust experience. One of my teachers survived a death camp. And so, one day I come in after school and it's like I already had like this long day at school. It's raining, it's dreary out, and she just comes in the room and starts talking about a death camp and the men and the women and children being divided. I mean,
wow.
Just, for 2 hours I was treated to a real horror story, and it actually traumatized me. But and it was, I mean, it's real stuff.
What about the Passion of the Christ? How did that make you feel?
Wow.
Yeah, well, then I felt so guilty for killing Jesus after watching the Mel Gibson. Then I just forgave him. I forgave Hitler after I saw that.
If you want to get killed, you should have stayed in India.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
What we did to Jesus. So it seemed like the right idea at the time.
But a lot of people were into it.
In hindsight, a lot of people were into it.
The Holocaust, when you learn about it and you get it in your psychological bloodstream, it can go either way. And it's like, what lessons do you want to take away from it? The Jews that are protesting this genocidal slaughter, what I call the Gaza Holocaust, that are protesting it, shutting down the Capitol, they're taking the lesson of never again to anyone. That's kind of the lesson
That's what I thought it was. I thought it was that. It was not that, I guess.
Well, you see, at Hebrew school, they talked a lot about the Holocaust, but because of the Holocaust, you had to be a Zionist, which is very much what you hear from Zionists. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the message. Steven Spielberg, who was at the Golden Globes last night, where the Gaza Holocaust was not mentioned once. Steven Spielberg put that forward in Schindler's List. It's like the ultimate Holocaust movie that really consolidated the narrative, the Zionist narrative of the Holocaust in American popular culture,
right.
Which is, just you're treated to endless horrors throughout this film. And then at the end, it's no longer in black and white, it's in color. And the survivors are in Jerusalem and they're going to Yad Vashem, where you can actually see the village of Deir Yassin, the site of one of the worst massacres of the Nakba. You can see it from there, and they're going there, and it's basically like Israel is our deliverance from the Holocaust. That's the Spielberg mainstream message. And now
that's why he lives there.
Exactly. Yeah, he loves it so much there. It's because it's such a safe place to be a Jew.
Yeah.
I mean, leaving aside the fact that you can get rocketed, taken captive because you're like living next door to a open air prison camp for the captive natives.
Which I got to say,
all that aside,
yeah, that
Israelis are the worst drivers on the planet. They have like one of the highest. They have like one of the highest rates of car accident deaths on the planet because they drive like they're driving tanks, or like they're going to drive over a Palestinian's car in a tank.
I
it's
was an
just a
Uber
very-
driver. I used to drive through a Hasidic neighborhood. Literally, this is not a joke. I went to drop a woman off at a hospital. I pull up. I have to double park because there's a car parked next to the thing. This guy tries to drive between us. I mean, there was not 3 feet between cars. Like, he was going to crash into him. He just comes full speed, honking the horn. I had to honk my horn. I said, what the hell are you doing? There's literally 3 feet between these cars. Your plan is to just barrel through the cars. So, yeah.
Yeah,
feel your pain.
yeah. When you
He was
see a
gonna park the
Hasidic guy in
cars.
a
He was
literally
occupying
just
your
to crash
parking
right through it.
space.
That was obviously his plan.
the Hasids are all about business. I mean, when
Oh,
you
yeah.
see them barreling through in their minivan, you just get out of the way.
Yeah.
'Cause they got somewhere to be.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
no.
So now, when you look through this reporter's Twitter, as a lot of people have done now, it's remarkable. It's remarkable that she would be assigned to cover this story. She's retweeting Barry Weiss. She's just retweeting the most absolutely extreme, insane Zionist talking points, to the degree that if you were a newspaper who cared at all about truthful reporting, her Twitter alone would be grounds for firing, unless you want to put her on the food desk or something. She can cover hot cuisine.
Have you seen the other New York Times people?
Well, this is WAPO, not that the Times is.
Oh, I'm sorry, WAP.
Not
Oh,
that
have you
the
seen
Times
the other
is any
Washington
better.
Post articles?
So she was about to do a hit piece. How did you guys get word of the hit piece? Did she send you an email? Hey, I'm gonna question your credibility, because there was an email involved, right?
Exactly, yeah. And she basically said just that. She said, this is a piece about you minimizing the atrocities of October 7th.
She literally
And,
wrote that to you?
Yes, and she said you have been one of the main outlets writing about how Israelis were killed on October 7th by the Israeli military, which is something
That happened.
that happened.
Wait, what?
It's not even questionable.
Why-
It's not even up for debate.
Israel's allowed to report that. Why
admits
can't
that.
you?
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
And so I didn't even know she had emailed me, even though my direct messages on Twitter X are open. That would have been the best way to reach me. But she sent it to our public email, and I don't think she expected me to call or email back. But she did write a longer
well,
email
clearly.
to Ali Abunimah at Electronic Intifada, and it was like, you are responsible for convincing masses of people that Israel killed everybody on October 7th and that the Hamas attack didn't even happen. Essentially, that's what she was implying, and that we were spreaders of disinformation and conspiracy theorists. And, you know, the whole playbook of these downward punching lackeys for the intelligence services and the deep state. That's basically what she was going to do. So Ali wrote a really devastating response to her in print and published it on Twitter. And I saw it and I said, wait a minute, I bet you she's gunning for us too. So I checked our public email where I diligently try to respond to everyone like Noam Chomsky does.
Right.
And
Does he?
there she was, Elizabeth Dwoskin, calling us minimizers of atrocities. And, you know,
What does that
maybe she's
mean?
gonna,
First degree minimizing.
Yes, exactly.
well,
All right.
it's- yeah, I mean, I wanted to find out. So that's why I called her.
All right, so let's take a look at the beginning of this phone call. We're just gonna take a look at our first reaction, and then we'll get into the meat of
It's
it.
weird. I'm here and I'm the same guy.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Is this Elizabeth Dwoskin?
May I ask who's calling?
Yeah, hi. It's Max Blumenthal from the Grayzone, and I'm here with my colleague Aaron Maté.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for calling.
Sure. Yeah. You wanted to
So-
talk about our factual journalism?
That's good. I want to interview for my piece.
Yeah, I got an email from you accusing us of minimizing the atrocities on October 7th.
Okay, so this was just her initial reactions, and so she dodges you. She's got another interview, and then you really get into it, questioning whether or not she's a Zionist.
Wait a minute. You can kind of hear her chewing. She's like eating Sabra hummus or something. It's almost 5 p.m. on a Friday.
I'm on trial,
And
at
she
this
picks
point.
up at 4:58, and she says that she has a call right then and there, which a work call that's so important. So why would you pick up your phone? Is it really normal to be like chowing down right before you have an important work call? And how many people who work 9 to 5 have an important work call at 5 p.m. on Friday? So I just don't believe that she had another call. But
Well,
anyway.
at first she ducked you because you called her twice, right? At first she didn't pick up, and you're like, "Let's try again," and then she picked up. Yeah.
All right. So now you ask her the $1 million question.
You have minimized the Nakba of Palestinians writing for Columbia University's paper. You describe them as just a bunch of desert Bedouins. Are you a Zionist?
You know, I'm not sure. Like,
I mean, I see you retweeting Barry Weiss, who's a major supporter of the Israeli genocide in Gaza. And I need to know, are you ideologically committed to the system of Zionism? And it's very curious that someone like that would be assigned to this story. And it's also curious to me that the Washington Post refuses to investigate the real story and hold accountable this powerful apartheid state and is instead attacking independent journalists. You are afflicting the afflicted, and comforting the powerful, as the Washington Post has traditionally done. So why should we even trust you to set up some kind of call?
I mean, that is completely up to you to do so.
Are you a Zionist?
That is completely up to you to set up a call. This isn't about any personal biases, ideologies. That's not what this.
Do you support Israel's military campaign in Gaza?
Excuse me, what is it? I feel like you're interrogating me, and my other
Well,
call is starting.
You deserve to be interrogated. It's highly
please,
inappropriate that someone who seems to have such deep affection for an apartheid state committing genocide would be assigned to this story and is attacking independent journalists who produced factual journalism on a major scandal instead of holding to account the state and military responsible for that scandal. And by the way, why is the Washington Post always minimizing genocide, the attack on the Maghazi refugee camp? It was referred to as just strikes against Hamas in the Washington Post. Where?
Okay, can you explain that?
Yeah, Israel dropped GBU 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs on a densely populated refugee camp, killed 70 people in one strike. There's no military value at all. They just did it for fun. And then they went and said, yeah, we did it, but we used the wrong weapon. We wanted to use a smaller bomb. So the Washington Post headline was, they literally said that.
You know what minimizes what was done to those innocent Israelis? Killing 10 times the number of people. That tends to minimize the initial.
Yeah, you know, and I gotta say, the more I looked into this, why are you having a music festival next to a concentration camp? Why is really like you can enjoy yourself knowing that these people are locked in on the other side of the wall?
Yeah. I mean, you can literally see electrified fencing with machine gun turrets on top.
That's probably why it felt comfortable. It looked pretty secure.
This seems safe. It's like the ultimate gated community. But
not a bug, it's a feature.
As a side note, I actually went to a classical music concert held on the frontier of Gaza by one of the most famous Israeli conductors. I covered it, and their aim was to blast classical music, Beethoven, into Gaza and hopefully convince them to become more civilized and release this one Israeli captive that they had who was a soldier, Gilad Shalit. And they ultimately did release him in exchange for 1,000 prisoners.
That was the big prisoner exchange, right?
So maybe the Beethoven worked, as Kurt said, but highly bizarre colonial insanity is present in Israel all the time. So anyway, where were we in the call?
Okay, so
the Washington Post headline of that massacre was Israel deepens strikes against Hamas or intensifies strikes against Hamas. It wasn't Israel massacres 70 civilians for no reason.
Dresden,
right? These are blasts, right? They report
blasts,
as blasts now. All right.
Where is the report on all of the Israeli social media posts, the TikTok posts celebrating the genocide of Gaza, mocking people in Gaza for having their water and energy turned off, the Israeli soldiers in Gaza proudly committing war crimes on TikTok, broadcasting it to the world. Have you written one story about that as the social media reporter?
So feel free to send me anything, any articles or clips that you think.
Feel free to answer the question.
Feel free to send me any articles or clips.
See, this is why nobody trusts corporate media and why they're reading Electronic Intifada and the Grayzone, because you can't even answer these questions. You can't even tell us about your own Zionism and why you're doing this hit piece.
I'm really just taken aback.
Why? I'm taken aback.
Okay, well, I apologize for being taken aback, but I feel like the next step, the natural step that anyone does when one is interviewing a story subject is, or anyone who's mentioned or has a reference in a story, is to talk the whole thing through, to schedule a time and talk it through. So that's all I'm saying.
You didn't even ask me in the email to schedule a time or talk it through.
So I apologize.
You could have sent questions.
Because I'm running late to another call. So I'll send a follow-up email to your email with suggesting some times. Does that work?
Do you still believe that Palestinians, that the people of Palestine were just desert Bedouins before Israel?
Okay, Liza Dwoskin of the Washington Post has hung up on us.
Yeah, that was the limit.
Do you think she's even like this kind of chick that works at Washington Post, where the great Taylor Lorenz works?
I was thinking of Taylor Lorenz through this entire thing.
They're all like the fish speakers from Dune. Like, you don't have to even tell them what the plan is. They're already pre-programmed to carry it out, no matter what.
Well, those are the only people who get those jobs, right? So
that's a great point.
Did she ever?
Max, she emailed you, right? She emailed you. And then so what was she so taken aback for? Did she not expect you to reach out? Did she not expect you to call her? Like, how was she expecting that to go?
I think she expected us to see, to seek her legitimization, that like we would want her to, we would want to be treated with respect by her and to be seen in a positive light by the Washington Post audience, and that we wouldn't treat her and the billionaire-owned Post as an enemy of the people, which is how we see the whole corporate media.
So she thought you were going to call up and say, "What can we do to straighten this out?" Where you can say some nicer things
I think
about us.
exactly. You're misunderstanding us, and it's just like, no, I'm just gonna. If you're in the corporate media and you want to write a hit piece about us, the only way that you're going to hear from me is when I'm going to put a middle finger in your face in front of everyone, because that's what people need to see and feel in this moment. The corporate media is complicit in this genocide. They helped Israel consolidate the narrative that they needed to gain the political support to carry out the most heinous slaughter of children and civilians and mothers and fathers we've ever seen in our life, in order to maintain an apartheid system and a permanent occupation. And they deserve every bit of contempt that the public wants to give them.
You're minimizing what was done by Hamas right now.
Do you condemn Hamas?
Yeah,
you condemn
Hamas.
Every question, the only questions that we're supposed to answer as independent media or average people or activists, the only questions that we're allowed to answer are ones that compel you to display your obedience to power. So, do you condemn Hamas? There's only one right answer to that question. And when you say yes, it means you comply with the apartheid Israel, and Palestinians have no right to resist at all, and you just bow down. There's no thinking allowed. There's no context. There's no history. Turn off your brains. Be stupid. Let Netanyahu and his genocide machine just roll on through. And that's Liza Dwoskin's job.
I condemn Hamas so much that I condemn Bibi for paying them and keeping them afloat all these years. Like, before you even get to the battle, like, oh, they're terrible, right? Why were you propping them up? Your prime minister? Openly?
Come see us do a live stand-up show. We'll be in Venice, California, Palmdale, California, Omaha, Des Moines, Milwaukee, Lansing, Bend, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Boston, Massachusetts, and we're going to Europe. Do you live in Europe? We're going to be there. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.